Hey everybody, Geek Movie House here quick for you. Before we start the episode, we did Dark City tonight. It came out in 98. It is a wonderful film and we highly recommend you watch the movie before listening, unless you're in for the ride and want it completely spoiled for you. Once again, please watch the movie. Wait a minute, Adam. You haven't seen Planet of the Apes?
You really haven't seen Peter Pan?
What about Dark City?
Let's remedy that. Welcome to Raised by Spoilers, everyone, where we watch and unpack cult movies. Some of them good.
And most of them bad.
Welcome back to Raised by Spoilers, everyone. I'm one of your hosts, Plebeian Adam. Tonight I'm joined... Wait a minute, that didn't sound right.
But
I'm Plebeian Adam.
I was Plebeian Adam.
But you're Plebeian Adam.
I don't remember that.
But I have Plebeian Adam's memories.
That's so weird. Joining us tonight, the feminist warlord herself, Nintendo Geek.
Or is a Geek Movie House?
Well, this is confusing. The Keeper of Secrets, the Lady of Lore, the Aes Sedai herself, Plebeian Amanda.
Oh, I got nothing to top that. That just sounds awesome.
The spirals.
The Spirals.
Everything's a circle.
So what?
And joined by
movie-
Geek Movie House.
Okay.
What did we watch tonight, Adam?
This is a legitimate question.
Yeah. What did we
What
watch?
the fuck did we watch?
What did we watch
just watch
tonight?
right now? My brain just melted
So-
in a very dark and gloomy and no sunlight kind of way.
Ladies and gentlemen, we watched 1998's Dark City.
And we all have a vitamin D deficiency
Yeah.
for it.
Horrible vitamin D deficiency.
The movie came out in February 27th in 98. The budget for the film was $27 million.
Oh.
And it was directed by Alex Proyas.
Proyas?
He's Greek.
Proyas.
We don't want to put a little R on that or roll our tongues at all. Proyas. Notably known for directing The Crow,
Yes.
I, Robot with Will Smith. Keep your wife's name out of my mouth. And
Amazing.
Gods of Egypt, which kind of flopped.
So, as far as I can tell, he's probably 50-50 at this point. I mean, iRobot was alright, so maybe like 60-40.
But there was that scene with the Converse. They're vintage.
Oh, God.
I don't even remember iRobot. I just remember there was like really creepy robots that were like white and...
That's because
iRobot-
your memory was removed.
iRobot was
yeah, okay.
the short story written by... for fuck's sakes. The short story written by...
Isaac Asimov.
Isaac Asimov. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Thank you for that poll.
I wanted to let you
Yeah,
say
no.
that.
Isaac, just running
Well,
and
that's
running.
That's the
Yeah.
guy who originated the idea of AI, isn't
Yes,
it?
and the 3 laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
Ro-
by the
Robots.
way,
robots. Yeah.
as,
yes.
as a computer guy, those laws would do jack shit.
Yeah, but at the time period, right? We're at that sweet spot of...
I think he just logical rules that he put in place for his books so that you got the idea as to how an AI is supposed to act in his world.
But
That's
much
all.
like Jack Vance, that author had set up rules in a world where everyone from that point on kind of followed
Yeah.
within science fiction. But we're not talking about Jack
No.
Vance or Isaac Asimov or even iRobot. Tonight we watched Dark City. I want to go around the table quick before we actually get into the plot or our real thoughts and stuff like that. And just on a surface area, just that little fingernail scratching at the scab, what did everyone think about it? Adam.
All right, so here's the deals. I think I've kind of liked one movie we've seen so far.
Okay.
I've been disappointed by all of them.
Wow.
There is something wrong with me.
Okay.
I am a huge fan of film noir.
Okay.
For whatever reason. I just adore film noir.
Okay.
I love a good mystery. And I love something that takes place in, like, what, the 40s?
This didn't take place in any time
I get
frame.
that.
Yeah.
I think
There was
it
a
I think
time
it's
frame where they
50s.
keep jumping.
I think it's
50s?
50s aesthetic.
Yeah.
I
But
don't
there's
remember what
70s
like,
aesthetic
classic-
as well, though.
Yeah,
They
right.
it's 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yeah, they kind of had everything because they even had that Art Deco kind of thing
There's
going on in some
it's
places.
a scatter shot of memories.
Yeah, but no, this movie, it was like, hey, Adam, we have taken all of your likes, except for maybe no Gary Oldman and no Mila Jovovich, and we have injected it directly into your brain.
Right here.
Right in the center, right
in the middle, in between
right in the middle of the eyebrows.
In between
yeah.
the eyebrows.
Right between the eyebrows. And it was fantastic.
He liked it.
I loved it.
Yeah?
Yeah,
I'm happy. I didn't want to hype it up, and I was real nervous because this is one of those movies that is very weird.
well, you fucking hyped it up. I think we were like 5 minutes in, not even. And you're like, Adam, this may be one of your new favorites.
It's good.
I don't know if
was.
it's. I don't know if it's one of my new
yeah.
favorites, but it's definitely top.
I will say it's one of those ones where you kind of go back once a year and you watch it again because there's shit you will miss.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the wedding rings change, like little shit where she's like, "Oh yeah, no, I never take it off."
I didn't notice that.
Exactly. Nintendo Geek, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I've seen this movie now probably 5 times.
Okay.
Like you said, it's like the once a year movie. And there's still things that I'm pulling that I didn't notice before. Like the intro scene where it shows space and then it pans down, much like Star Wars does. And I'm like, oh shoot, like if you're familiar with the movie, if you remember the beginning 5 seconds of the movie, it solves a puzzle for you. And you're just not 100% aware of it, obviously, because you haven't seen it. So coming back as a continuing watcher of the movie, there's still things that you miss or figure out rewatching it time after time.
I've got to ask. So you say it's like once a year watch, and you've watched it 5 times. This movie's been out since 1998. You should have watched it like 24 times.
I mean, I was
times?
8 in 1998, so I think I've seen it for the first time back, I want to say in 2010?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I could have understood this movie if I was 8. It totally would have made sense to me.
I don't think this is like
I mean, I was
8-year-old
8 the first
appropriate.
time I seen The Shining
Oh my
and
God.
The Exorcist.
Never seen The Shining.
I've never seen The Shining either.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yet
but,
I've seen Dr. Sleep.
But we watched this almost a year ago during the lockdowns, and still it's like I always forget the ending until halfway through, and I'm like, oh, and it always surprises me. So I really like it. I think there's something there for everybody, even if you're a first time watcher or a seasoned watcher of watching it more than at least 5 times. It's like it doesn't get old.
Plebby and Amanda, thoughts? Did you hate it? Did you like it?
You know what? I liked it. Not necessarily for like the movie itself. I just like the universe they built.
It's fucking neat.
It's rad. It's like I got like Fallout vibes.
Yep.
Right? That weird, quirky, like sci-fi
Americana.
40s, 50s Americana. Right? Especially the atomic like food dispensary there that
Yeah.
like really pushed that button. But also the fact that it was like very gothic too, and like just weird and out there, and I loved that. And it was a good like watch, honestly. They had enough mystery, enough like classic sort of like 90s thriller kind of atmosphere.
Right.
It was enjoyable. I actually very much enjoyed it.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
I could have been fooled. You were talking about the dark and the style and everything.
Yeah.
I could be easily fooled that Tim Burton was an
Absolutely.
an area artist on
I
this
feel
or
like
something.
Tim Burton's fingers could just be, imprinted on all the things in this movie.
So the more you watch Tim Burton's stuff, the more you kind of see he does that weird little curl on
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
And that weird little curl doesn't actually show up in this. You get the spirals, but for the most part,
Yeah,
this is a very
that is true.
jagged, straight line.
Yeah.
There's very little curves other
Yeah.
than the spirals
Okay.
in this film for the architecture with the desk, the accordion. Like there's sharp, very, very sharp lines.
Yeah,
like they
that's
use a
true. I never
dagger.
really thought about that.
Like there's a lot.
And
even
their
the way the
daggers
glass-
don't have like rounded handles. They have the
No,
pointed
right.
handles.
Even the way the glass breaks. Like,
The
it's all-
daggers mimic the syringes because the syringes open up much like the daggers had the.
I was trying to
flared
figure out, is that
handle.
because it's their technology and
Yes.
it's just the way they think? And
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. I like that. So why? Okay, there's a lot to unpack of what this was about.
Okay.
I will admit I've never been a fan of because I'm a horrible basic nihilist. I never really liked the idea, the concept of like what makes humans so special. And that's really what this all comes down to, is these aliens are studying humans and
Yeah.
they're throwing a bunch of shit at the wall to see what sticks, and they think it's memories. But I never really liked the concept of that story arc of like what makes, it's love, it's what's in our hearts. I'm a nihilist, so I think we're just like any other animal.
I think it's the main grasp or like the desperate attempt to fit in
Yeah.
and blend in, because you kind of get this little dying race that you are using the dead. And this isn't even really connecting dots or like stretching as much as the movie itself and the script is giving you the lines like, we use your dead as vessels.
Yeah.
We cannot survive sunlight. We cannot deal with water. What makes you tick, and how do we put us in you?
Oh, okay.
Because
So
they're a
it
dying
wasn't,
race.
it wasn't necessarily that they wanted to find out what was human. It's that they wanted to become us so that they could survive in
Right.
the environment that we
And
can
then
thrive in.
procreate and move on. And then like,
I
guess it
see.
makes
Right. sense.
That makes more sense.
can we put it in a pill?
See, right at the... Okay, I'm jumping right to the end, so I don't
Right
want
to the end. Let's unpack it. Let's just go through
All right.
it. Okay. Eyebrows. What do you think?
I ever since I first saw Jennifer Connelly's eyes and eyebrows in actually, I think it was the Hulk movie,
Okay.
Yeah, the first Hulk.
The first Hulk
the
movie.
first Hulk, I have been smitten with her.
Beautiful.
Her eye. I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's her body. No, it's her eyes. Her eyes are assaulting and amazing.
They're intense
Yes.
and seductive.
Right.
She
right.
has seductive
And
eyes.
she's got thick brows.
Not afraid of a thick brow.
She's got huge thick
Not
brows. So
pathetic.
I'm gonna I gotta give the brow to her.
I'm gonna worship
Nintendo
the
geek?
brows.
Well, I
Eyebrows?
was gonna say she was one of the few of us who survived not over plucking their eyebrows
In the 90s.
in the 90s.
Well, and actually more like the 2000s,
So,
the early 2000s.
She resisted that, and now it's she probably really is thankful she did that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Flubby and Amanda.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. She's beautiful, honest to God. Like, she is, like, iconic 90s beauty. And, yeah, I'm very jealous of her eyebrows.
All right, that's been Raised by Spoilers, everybody. Thank you very much for joining in, and good night. No, so anyway, so where did you want to go with it? Right to the end?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump right to the end. So I kind of got to the end that it felt like, because they were like a hive mind of some sort. It
Right.
sounds like, and these alien creatures, which they don't necessarily say that they're aliens, because in context, we're the aliens.
Exactly.
They are the strangers.
Yeah.
Oh, they're called the strangers.
No, but they're aliens. They're like weird alien vampire.
Yeah, they're
thing.
alien
You're
to
not-
us, but we're also alien to them.
Yeah,
And
they're like weird little tentacle monsters with teeth. Because, you know, what sci-fi alien doesn't have tentacles and teeth?
And they're not like a lithid. They're not like mind flayers. They're
Yeah.
this weird creature. Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like metaphysical, like you can see through them. They're like they look like jellies, like
Yeah,
jellyfishes with
They got them
tentacles.
jellies.
With teeth.
Jellies.
And they use earthlings as vessels. So
Dead earthlings.
They're the ones who would abduct, and then they would turn, because each and every one of those strangers look different, like children, old men. Like there's a couple women, but they're all pale, bald, but they all have the alien in them.
Yeah.
So that's what they meant. It's not them. It's the
it's
alien.
the alien inside.
Yeah.
My first thought to that was, first of all, it reminds me of, did you guys ever watch Peacemaker?
I haven't seen it yet.
No.
You'll fucking love it.
I know I will. I know I will. I know.
The other one is, it reminded me of when we got to a certain point, all I could think about was, oh, this is clearly a city being run by vampires.
I would have loved that.
Always dark.
They
Look
look
at
like
these guys; they
vampires.
look like vampires.
Yeah.
They've kind of got that Nosferatu kind of thing
I totally
going.
could have made that
That's
stretch,
where.
yeah.
And so that was my first thought. And I wasn't too far off once they said, I was like, oh, they're aliens, clearly. And then they're like, we use your dead. I'm like, okay, so that's what they were going for. I get that now. But I got the feeling like their intent wasn't to necessarily, I was kind of confused, like, were they trying to figure out what was us? And then it sounded like they were going to implant their own hive mind into John. So that's how they would continue forward. They're kind of doing the transporter thing where it's like, we're just taking our thoughts and our memories because that's all we think we are as a hive mind.
You're the arc.
And then we're putting in John, who's the arc. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's going to become us.
Right.
I think it was a part too where they wanted him specifically to be a part of their collective as well, because his memories now were important to their survival. Like, he was the stage of evolution. So whatever he was important to them for their survival, and I think they wanted that knowledge to be a part of their collective mind or whatever too.
He's waterproof. He lightly sunburns.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just weird that they kind of do that, the Odysseus ship / transporter philosophy, which is clearly what they're doing is they're injecting their hive mind thought into him so that he becomes them in memory only, because that's what they think makes a human. That's what they think makes someone something.
Yeah.
Their memories, yeah.
and that's all they know, and that's kind of cool because it lays credence to why all their studies were based around memory,
Right.
and why they think the memories are so important.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool. But it's not really going to be them because the little brain jellies isn't going to be inside John. It's just going to be the memories of that.
Right.
So the alien race will be dead as they know it.
Right.
Just not their knowledge.
Unless they kill John and then just take over his body.
But they don't want to do that because if they do that, they just become the undead that they are.
Right.
Which they want to get away
It
from.
doesn't
Yeah, okay.
work.
You're right.
So they're still scrambling because it's a dying race.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, like, how do we launch the rocket to get off the planet?
Yeah, but they've accepted that they are a dying race and this is the only way they can go forward
Right.
is be Odysseus' ship.
Theseus or Odysseus?
Theseus.
Yeah.
No, Odysseus, because it goes on an Odyssey. It's Odysseus's.
Are we not talking about the ship of Theseus?
I don't know. It's the ship of Odysseus. He goes on an Odyssey. Well, yeah, he goes on an Odyssey.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is because as he goes on the ship, it's an Odyssey, and that's why we call it an Odyssey because it's based on the guy named Odysseus. I could be pronouncing it wrong, but
Dope. I'm thinking of the vision thing. But anyway, you're probably right. Cool. So you like the movie. The ending was weird. The beginning had you guys all kind of continuously sitting there asking out loud, which was really enjoyable because I kept looking at Nintendo Geek because you guys just kept going, what the fuck?
yeah,
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck? And it's just watching these puzzle pieces. And
yeah.
William Hurt, the late great actor, has a moment in the movie where he's freaking out going, I have all of these puzzle pieces, and every time I move them around, it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. And I don't understand what the fuck is going on.
Wait, William Hurt?
William Hurt?
You're thinking John Hurt.
You're right. I am thinking John Hurt.
I'm thinking William Hurt.
I'm thinking John Hurt, the
Treasure of an actor.
the
that,
treasure of
that
actor
plays,
played
like,
Hellboy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Professor Broom.
Yeah,
William
yeah.
Hurt was the detective or the cop.
The cop.
Ah.
He plays General Ross.
Ross,
in the MCU.
He did
Oddly
play.
enough, he plays Jennifer Connelly's character's father.
Yep.
In the series.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, they
I
had
did
worked together.
recognize him.
Yeah, they had worked together in the past.
Oh, he is a gem. He was great in this.
He was.
Yeah, you know what? I honestly, when we first started watching this, I was a little concerned because it jumped in like real quick to whatever this universe was and, whatever story was going on with no context, no nothing.
That was great.
And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Why is this happening? What the fuck? And it was just like, I spent a while just not understanding anything.
But by the end, did you have a good idea?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. That's
I
the
would
important thing.
say that they did that on purpose because you're in John Murdoch's shoes.
Yes.
You've just been injected. You don't know where you are. You're looking around and all you have is what is in the room.
There's a common theme in movies where you get interjected with this character. Like, this character came from another world so that you go through the learning of the world with that character so that you can feel connected to the world.
Yeah. Okay.
This was our version of that, except it was way more crazy, way more chaotic, way more unknown for obvious effect.
So the difference is the studio stepped in New Line Cinema and they said, fuck that, it's too weird. And we understand you want to make a weird movie and you got to have a lore dump and some voiceover work. So the difference between the director's cut and the theatrical cut is Kiefer Sutherland does a lot of his monologues. Instead of them in the boat and him telling what happened, it's those weird quiet shots of the city and just voiceover.
Oh.
So the director's cut is a little longer, and like that shot of the city in space, that is all lore dump and exposition. And it's just a fuckload of exposition, and then the movie starts. So the difference is with the director's cut is he's like, hey, we kind of scrapped that because we didn't want that because we wanted you guys to have something to chew on.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But for when we were screen testing it and the general audiences and stuff, they were pushing for a PG-13 rating.
Right.
And a lot of people in the audiences couldn't put their finger on it, but they kept getting up and going, this movie is too weird. It needs to be rated R. And they were like, there is barely any blood. There is very little nudity. There is virtually no swearing. And they're like, yes, but it's too weird for a PG-13 film. It needs to be a rated R. So they went back, and that's when they put pants on, or they took the pants off John. You see a nipple, you see some tits, and they took out the dialogue. And they just kind of let stuff said, okay, fuck it. It's weird. Then we're going to get real weird. Because originally, when they first started shopping it around, they couldn't get it made. And then Fox/Disney kept trimming the budget.
Well, yeah.
And cutting it down in post-production. Or pre-production. In pre-production. So they're like, fuck this. We're going to go to another studio.
Yeah.
If they're not going to we can't lock down a price to actually make this film, we're not going to be able to do it. Two things. They wanted to have Johnny Depp play John Murdoch.
It could have worked.
The problem is, what they found was...
Amber Heard had beaten him up too much?
No, not yet. People would have been distracted that it was Johnny Depp.
Was he famous enough back then?
Oh,
Yes,
Edward
he was.
Scissorhands. Like he was in.
It's 98.
And 21 Jump Street.
He was in a lot back then.
Ellis,
Nightmare
20
on
on
Elm
Drum
Street.
Street wouldn't have been...
Well,
no,
Nightmare on Elm Street would have been...
Yeah, the
21
originally,
Jump
right.
Street.
You're right.
Yeah, he wasn't...
He was in a bunch of stuff.
That was his premiere movie.
But was he famous then by that
Super famous.
Yeah.
point? Okay.
He would have had
Super
Edward
famous.
Scissorhands.
Super famous.
That would have been
98.
enough, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then there was the that one. That was it. The one we used with Hell Bonaparte, where he was like a killer.
That's way
that-
later.
Was that way later?
Yeah.
When he would like 8 people.
He turned them into
Oh,
pies.
Sweeney
Yeah.
Todd was
Sweeney
like
Todd, yeah.
2000, in the mid 2000s.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
The other actor they wanted was Tom Cruise at the height of his career.
Oh,
Ooh.
That would not.
That's a
that
bad
would not
choice.
have
The
worked.
only reason why they went with Rufus Sewell was it was somebody you weren't familiar with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
and
also,
it
it wasn't necessarily an unknown because he had been in stuff before, but you weren't familiar with him in the general American audience.
Yeah.
And you weren't sitting there going, oh, how's Johnny Depp going to get out of this one? Not the character. How is
Yeah.
the person going to get out of this
Yeah.
one? And that's why they're like, we can't use big name actors.
That makes sense.
We need like a different level
Yep.
You also
of actor to bring in.
generally associate an actor with like a certain personality or role or whatever, because a lot of actors do get typecasted, right? So I feel like if they'd used Johnny Depp, you would assume that, okay, this person, we know they're probably going to be a little creepy, a little quirky, a
Right.
little whatever, because it's just an extension of Johnny Depp.
Right.
And a lot of actors have a hard time shutting off like their personal touch with whatever role they're playing. Some are really, really good at it. Like Gary Oldman can play different roles and be completely different characters.
Christopher Walken.
Right. But a lot of actors, generally when they play a role, there's always a little bit of themselves in it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like that might have detracted from it a little bit. But-
Depp wanted to do it.
Oh, I can
And
see
they had
this.
to turn
This
him
is
down.
right up
This
his
is
fucking
right up
alley.
his
Right.
alley.
Depp wanted
Yeah.
to do this.
Weird, creepy, quirky. Yeah, it's totally a Johnny Depp role.
Yeah. The other thing was William Hurt is there wasn't enough speaking lines for him, and he wanted more like write lines for me because he was just chewing through the script and loving it.
Yeah.
And the story with William Hurt is that he was apparently a huge pain in the ass to work with because he was a little demanding and a little not fancy, but he was an Oscar-winning actor and he knew how to throw his weight around.
Yep.
So they were writing lines like the night before for him to use, and he'd be like, great. Then they'd be like, pick one. And he'd be like, no, I'm going to do all of them. Like, we're going to go through it. And like, let's make it feel fucking real
Nice.
and a little bit more lived in.
Yeah.
And what you watch, which is wild, is in the film, especially the next couple times you view it, is everyone is running around. And he is the only one walking.
Yeah.
He never runs in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There is just a moment of calm in that storm. There is different scenes. The same thing with John Murdoch, where he's all screw loosed and all over the place. And then you cut back to William Hurt's detective. Anybody?
No,
I
I
don't
remember.
You couldn't remember? The detective, we'll call him for short. And he's just trying to figure it out. And he's slow and calm. And what do you mean? Right? Like light cigarette and just kind of. Just
nobody listens.
Right.
To me.
Right. There's just these slow
What
moving.
I love that line. Freeze.
Yeah.
Nobody listens
Well,
to me.
he was trying to understand because himself was like once he was talking to the other police officer who was let go, being like, "Hey, I don't like that you make sense, and things are kind of making sense in my own reality, and I'm trying to kind of go through it, but I'm not believing it quite right."
Right.
And then slowly, it's also his journey through it too, being like, well, I can't quite remember. It kept showing the photo of his mom,
Yes.
but he never actually said his mom's name or
Right.
addressed the photo.
Right.
Right.
Like, oh, my mom died recently. Okay, well, when? You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
he
They
was
all
still
do
he
that.
was trying to cope with it as well because he hadn't been like implanted.
There is a great scene with him where he had been talking to Detective Eddie Walensky, the guy previous
Yeah,
to him.
Lewinsky. Yeah.
Who was
yeah.
on the crazy one that you're talking about? Who was on who was already investigating it and kind of went down the spiral?
Which would have been his partner.
Would have been his partner.
Because
Yeah.
inspector and then detective. Yeah.
Yep. You're right. Yeah. And he was going through and he was talking to this guy, starting to learn from him. And he was writing down notes and he just started writing spirals, like little tiny spirals in his notes. I'm like, oh, it has begun.
He's
has
starting
begun.
to kind of believe. And it's like, wait, what do you mean he died? Like, people don't die. Like, people don't remember that people die.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean he
Yeah.
died?
Well, they're having that great moment where they're both smoking cigarettes in the interrogation room. That is an interrogation room, sort of, because it's just a window, because you know somebody's on that roof watching everything happening.
Yes.
And they're just yelling at each other with cigarettes in their hand, going, "When is the last time you seen the sun? When was the last fucking time you seen anything?
Oh, I
when
love
did
that
you do
scene.
anything
Yeah.
during the day?"
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure it out, and then he just gets overwhelmed
Yes.
That
because
took
it's
me-
something's not clicking.
That took me way too long to figure out, by the way. I spent a good, most of the film not realizing that the whole thing took place at night and there
Yep.
was never a day scene. And for
I'm
some
amazed
reason,
you
my
never
brain,
noticed that.
compartmentalized it as just being like, oh, it's film noir, it's dark and gritty, like it's just film filters or whatever. And then I realized, no, this is night. Like, it's always been night all the time. And that was like a holy shit.
I mean,
Right.
I will say that you were kind of tricked because we just last night watched The Batman.
Right.
Or you did for the first time.
And
And that's all
love Batman.
night scenes.
It
Except for
is.
the last scene, it's all night scenes. And that was just stylistic at the time. So now you were predispositioned to assume it's just style.
Yeah, you're right. I
So-
feel like that did have an effect.
I was going to say quickly that it's funny you mentioned the Batman. It's like the animated series. It's always nighttime in the Batman animated series.
Yes.
I was just gonna go there. This is exactly
Yeah.
that is so funny.
Yeah.
This is exactly where I was gonna go. This is the set director and the way they built everything out is that's what I like when you say Batman. This is the world I'm thinking Batman in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you
These
know what?
weird
It totally could
cars
work.
and it's postmodern futurism and like the
I gotta
architecture and
I
the
love
bad
it.
guys and like this is
This
Batman the
Art
animated
Deco,
series.
New Age
Yeah.
kind of melding of the two.
Yeah.
Everything is green, brown, fucking gray, and there's maybe a splash of blood.
Yeah.
Like,
And the
Oh.
lights that they do have just flicker.
yeah,
All
yeah,
the
Because
time.
none of them fucking work.
None
They
of
need
them
an
work.
electrician.
Because they're all on all the time because there is no sun.
there is no sun.
I do have to add one little quick side fact, though. Do you know how they did and got everything so dark in the old animated series? They drew on black paper.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Just
That's
a fun little-
That's
Smart.
really cool.
Little tidbit there for you, everyone.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Richard O'Brien, from Rocky Horror Picture Show fame, Riff Raff, plays the main villain, chasing down John Murdoch, our Daredevil, John Murdoch, and he once in an interview said that he had a hell of a time trying to play the role because he is a very lively, energetic person in general, especially when it comes to acting or character acting. And as soon as he gets on set, they're pretty much telling him to play it as stonewalled as possible until the twist happens and you start seeing these weird crooked smiles as he's processing John Murdoch's memories and the serial killer that is in him now that is kind of has these moments of freedom, and you're hearing his colleagues or the other aliens or strangers kind of say that that's great and you're losing your mind, and we're watching you now, not what's happening.
Yes.
But what does that have to do with the case? What does that have to do with what we're after? You're tasting stuff kind of thing and like processing things that we normally do not give a shit about.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why they wanted to, at the end of the movie, implant
John?
John
Yeah.
Murdoch.
I know, I'm sorry. Matt Murdock. I know. When you read a lot of Daredevil comics, you start...
They could access... It wasn't so much of turning him into one of them. It was a key to unlock his psyche and his memories.
Right.
Because that would be the key, like you said, to integrate them into their society.
Right.
What is interesting is that the director and writer based The Strangers on Richard O'Brien when he wrote it, and then when he met him, he's like, "Yep, good decision." Like,
Oh, it totally makes sense.
Well, that's the funny thing, too. The
Yeah.
actors on set were like, we heard Richard O'Brien was going to be the villain, and we all hadn't seen him act yet on set, and we all had this idea of how he was going to do it in our head, and we all didn't really say anything, and then he comes out and he does it, and it's exactly
It's, like,
spot on,
perfect.
and it's fucking haunting.
Oh,
Because they gave him stilts Like he's got an extra couple inches
is
on
he
his
short?
boot. He's a little
Short.
short, but they gave him like stelts and stuff, so he's a little bit more intimidating with that hat and that long trench coat
The
and
huge collars.
Exactly. Yes.
He was great. I struggled to recognize him. I'm like, at first it was this reminds me of the guy from Rocky Horror Picture Show, and then he kind of did some acting that was very much not Richard O'Brien's style, which, based on what you're saying, this makes so much more sense.
It's hard. Act yourself, but don't be yourself.
Yeah.
We're like,
and then at some point when he started to kind of turn, he started to have that smirk that O'Brien has. He's got this little curl in when he smiles that is uniquely his. And I went, wait a second.
Right.
And that's why I turned to you guys and went, that's the guy from Rocky Horror Picture Show. And you're like, yes, it is. Like, okay, I'm not insane.
No.
Yeah, you know what, though? I really, really thought that I knew Ian Richardson, the Mr. Book character, from something else, because he just seemed so iconic in, like, his voice and his look. There's nothing that I recognize it from. He was in a lot of, like, older British films.
He was in the original Tinker Tailor.
That's it. Like his very obscure career. He's in a couple Disney films as like a voice actor, but I don't know. He just seems so familiar, and he's not. It's just odd.
That is oddly a movie that I did see, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It was one of the movies that got me into why we started Raised by Spoilers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The code names remind me a lot of even Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah,
but just the code, hey, these alien creatures are dealing with material objects or pretty things. Pretty.
Yeah, Mr. Hand, Mr. Book, there was like Mr. Vaz, and like there were some other like weird ones.
Right.
Mr. Rain, Mr. Book.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing some weird stuff. I struggled to like pin them down. I thought they were like a vampire group. I thought all this. So here's one thing I've got to ask is what's what I'm looking for? Why do they have to change the city to change people's memories?
Because it was shown in the beginning with Kiefer Sutherland, the doctor. The rats in a cage, and eventually they remember.
Oh, okay.
So the spiral mouse maze
changes.
The doors close and open.
Oh.
So he's constantly because that's what he's doing. He's flicking the doors closed and open and changing the maze that they've already been in.
Oh.
So eventually, just like the Inspector Boomstead, he's starting to remember and unravel the mystery.
Right.
Because he hasn't been changed long enough. They haven't gone in and injected him.
Yes.
So, like, the longer you sit and stay the same, the more likely you are to notice the city hasn't changed. Wait a minute, that's different. Why is my work is 2 subway stops. Why is it all of a sudden 8 subway stops?
Yes.
Like little shit like that.
So, what were the spirals a red herring? I don't remember. Like, what did it felt like the strangers put in the spiral as a part of like the whole lore of the serial killer, and that's all it kind of was. So it turned out to be kind of a red herring.
But when the inspector woke up after when it first showed the change, his coffee had the spiral.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a way that the disc of the city spins, possibly, or just the whirring of the machine underneath. Because even the clouds, like once he put the ocean, there was clouds starting to form, and they kind of like looked like a broken spiral in a way above the city.
Oh, okay. So the spiral
could
like
just
a
be
feeling that they all had.
It could just be the rotational spin, because instead of the world turning, it's spinning because it's a disc.
I didn't have an answer, and that's a fucking way better one than I was going to make up. I did not have an answer. So
that was
like,
what I thought of too. When it zoomed out and showed the whole city, you could see there was clouds kind of above the city, and they were in a spiral.
Because it's on an axis.
For the first time, because there's no water, because they can't handle water.
That makes total sense.
The spiral itself could also be a weird sort of shitty way that
they
measure time.
Like, how do you look at it could be the human fingerprint. It's always a weird form of a spiral. Even though everyone is unique, it could also...
I took that and I just sort of took it as a red herring for the most part. But I like your explanation of, it represents all their feelings of something's not right in our world. And that makes total sense.
Also, looking at it, watching it this time, I haven't seen Inception for years. But how a lot of the new, like even Marvel movie like Doctor Strange... in Inception, how they create something out of nothing, and just the way the city moves and changes is reminiscent about how modern Marvel movies
Right.
with the
Mhm.
crumbling of the multiverse or like Inception, just like the collapsing and growing.
I think that's just a limitation
It's
of the
kinda
human
neat.
mind.
True, but also it's cool to see in miniature format.
Also,
Yeah.
It
miniature
is.
format
Yeah.
24 years ago.
It's miniature format 24 years ago mixed with CGI.
I have
Yeah.
to say that for like 90s, like late 90s CGI, this aged really well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen some real shit, like, just low budget CGI, and this was actually, like, okay. Like, I could kind of look past the lack of texture or, you know, whatever, the 90s look to it and go, you know what, this is actually really well done.
It does hold up. The funny
Yeah.
thing is there's even on the Blu-ray some breakdowns where they're like, we strapped a very small camera, a film camera, on a toy train and ran it through the track for the miniature.
Right.
Because normally nowadays you would just CGI the pillars and stuff like
Yep,
that.
yep.
But because we took a really small train and like a toy train with a not a phone but like a camera and ran it through, that was the way we could get around those really close shots. So a lot of this is CGI, like you said, but a lot of it isn't. A lot of it is practical
Well, it
to an
seemed
extent.
blended. Like
Yeah.
so when
Yeah.
they were changing the city, there was 3D used to bring the bring the buildings into shape because they would kind of unfold or
Yeah, like
unwarp
twist
and
or
twist.
whatever.
And then once they were finalized, they became models.
Are you kidding me? You telling me right now? You can tell me right now that there's not fucking 100 people laying underneath that set blowing up those buildings like balloons? Like, no, and the way they did it though, like you could tell that they like rewind crank it because it's stuff like
May I
rebuilding
stop
itself
blowing?
backwards.
Yeah.
Right.
May I stop blowing or have a headache? Get back to work.
Yeah. The apartment building isn't quite finished yet. Quickly.
But to go back to what you said about why they changed the city so often, like you go to how it zeroed in on that husband and wife, where the husband clearly worked like shift work and he was run down, and she was also run down with kids, and they're like, what are we gonna do? Like obviously they're lower class, and then all of a sudden they come in and make them like a huge mansion.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but how do their hearts change or their memories change when they're like the poorest of poor to being millionaires? Like, and that's where Murdoch said, you're looking in the wrong place. It's not in the brain. It's like in the heart in a way.
Yeah.
Because they finished that lovely conversation, even though it's kind of shitty about him firing the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of became opposite to what he was.
Right. He becomes the boss.
Yeah.
And then like, how does that change a person's outlook? And does that like, you know, like how is it different?
Yes. My only thought with that entire episode was, first of all, the acting was really bad.
Oh, and that conversation
It felt
was
a little
real bad.
weird. It felt a
Yeah.
little
It felt like I
off.
was watching a TV
It
show.
almost
in a
sounded like a
movie.
voiceover.
Like a bad dub.
But it
Yeah.
wasn't them.
Yeah.
But maybe that was on purpose because it wasn't actually their, like, that wasn't them.
Maybe. And then my second thought on that episode was, wouldn't they have drowned by the time they went to sleep and the time they woke
yeah.
up?
Oh, in the soup? Yeah, when they...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ka-chunk, right in the...
But the thing is, it was a minute, not even. Because they manipulate time. They stop everything. So time isn't actually flowing during that time. And it resets
I mean,
as soon
they're
as it
still-
hits.
I don't
They're
think
still
that's true that
breathing.
time
I think
isn't... I don't believe that time isn't flowing. They're stopping our time or the people's time. They're not having the
But
clock
it looks
going.
like they all just go to sleep.
Yeah,
Right.
they all go to sleep right at midnight
Yeah.
or whatever, 12 o'clock. And I think what's happening is they're not stopping time. The disc is still floating through space. But that's why his cup still had the spiral.
True.
Because even though he looks down and he thinks no time has passed,
It caught up. And it's like, oh,
it's
shit.
still spinning. And he
Yeah.
noticed his cup is like, oh, my cup has changed.
Yeah.
Right? It's now spun because I've been sitting here for X amount of time.
Yeah.
They just don't move the clock so that people don't wake up and go, where the hell did the last 20 minutes go?
So I want to say in
Yeah.
the theatrical cut, he sits down with like a coffee.
Oh,
and
it
it's
shows
steaming.
him?
And then when that change happens, he picks up the coffee and it's cold.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
like that's the cut of the thing, but you still get that spiral.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes more sense. That's what I was expecting
Yeah.
to see. I think that would have hit better.
Yeah.
Than just showing the spiral. Now, it's one of those things where you don't understand it at the time, but afterward, looking back on it, it provides a lot of cool, like, oh, I understand
Right.
it now.
Right. I know, and like a Monday morning quarterback aspect of it, even with a cinematographer standpoint, you look at the shot where Bloomstead walks into the crime scene And at first, it's like it's a steady cam on like a guy's shoulder, and we're getting these long hallways because everything is long in this film, right?
Yeah.
The buildings are very long, the police station's very long, all of it, and it then cuts to the action shot of the detective walking in and looking around, where I almost feel like it would have been more strong, a little queasy if people aren't ready for motion, but him walking in and it's like that, like someone holding your back. You're walking in and you see the crime scene just as the detective, almost like a first person or over his shoulder.
Yes.
I really wish that was the one shot where it was over his shoulder and you still get his hat, you still get his ear, and him looking, and you see the crime scene. You see the water, you see the fishbowl broken, you see the glass, you see the knife on the floor, and then all of a sudden, as you spin the camera, and this would have almost maybe, if it was done wrong, felt a little hokey or almost horror movie bullshit, then you see like that shock of another woman dead on the floor.
Yes.
Kind of thing. And it just would have been that sweeping camera for the room. But I don't know if necessarily they built the entire room or if that was a 3-wall set.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And if it's a 3-wall set or a 4-wall set and there isn't that set for them to film it, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Correct.
But I just really feel like that over the shoulder, him walking in and seeing like, okay, this is kind of how this guy thinks and takes things apart.
Yes. We're seeing
Mechanically,
through his eyes, the
mechanically, right?
Yeah.
And it's not adding up for some of it.
Now, one thing I think they didn't explore in this, which is interesting, is, and this was a thought I had partway through, but I didn't know whether they were going to deal with it or not.
It's a big movie. There's
It's
a
a
lot
big
of stuff
movie.
in a little bit of time.
The investigator, whether or not he was this smart, I guess, because ideally, right at the beginning of the movie, he got injected,
Right.
with the investigator role.
Mm-hmm.
What was he before? Was he just some bumpkin?
Right.
Right? Was he just a bumpkin? And
Well,
is he actually
Are
stupid?
you saying like is intelligence a product of your memories, like that? Kind
Yeah,
of idea?
kind of. Were
Like,
they going to touch on that?
Yeah, I can see.
And
Yeah,
the fact is, this guy wouldn't have figured out that he was living in a spiral world, right? He
Right.
wouldn't have figured all this out, but they technically injected him. They technically injected him with the ability to deduce, but without, obviously, John, he wouldn't have had something to chase and therefore wouldn't have gone down the path. But they kind of sowed their own seeds.
So until John lifts the journal, he is an extreme denier.
Yeah.
Because as soon as John lays everything out, sunlight, your mother's name, daytime, when was the last time you know how to get to Shell Beach? He is, yeah. He's got an answer for everything, or he's got an excuse.
Yeah.
Until he picks up the journal with his mind, floats it around the room, goes, okay, explain this. And then there's a bit of a switch, because then it is clicked.
I don't know if I agree with that.
He was already thinking of stuff before that when he talked to Walensky and went to his apartment and seen everything. And then Walensky started asking him questions. And then he had the conversation in the car with Emma. And he's like, I can't remember my mom died. And then he's like, and then that kind of opened up to when he went to Murdoch. And then Murdoch is like, see, this is it. And that's when he became a true believer. But he was already questioning that beforehand.
But
Yes.
I'll argue that, though, because when he goes to see his Detective Walensky, he's literally going, no, it's about the case. It's about the case. It's about the case.
The first time.
It's about the case. And he goes, no, it's all bullshit.
But that was
It's
before he started doodling
Right.
the spiral. So he met Walensky, seen everything, and then he was already doodling before he seen the cup. So it was already in his mind.
The second time, so the
I
first
don't know,
time he
guys.
talks about Walensky, he's very much like, oh, he's a loony. He needs to go
Yeah.
to the loony bin.
Right.
He's not even questioning it. He's got no thoughts beside,
Right.
I can't trust what he's saying.
Right. Because he's self-respecting.
And at some point, that kind of gets, either he grows desperate or whatever, but something changes where he goes and talks to Walensky.
Mhm.
I don't want to say it was a switch per se. I feel like his journey is not a switch. It's been a growth, and
Yeah.
it's been a very granular.
Granular?
Granular.
Granular and gradular, because I would even say it
Yeah.
doesn't switch until Lewinsky kills himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Even
Because
then, I don't think
because I don't think he believes him, because he has like a moment of crisis when Murdoch's like, when is the sunlight come up? When is
Oh.
the sunlight set?
Oh,
He doesn't
yeah.
Right.
believe Walensky, but he's starting to question. He's
Right.
not doesn't believe Walensky, doesn't understand Walensky, but Walensky is poking holes and he's
Right.
going, He's making him think. He doesn't have answers to those thoughts
Right.
yet. And he doesn't even have fully formed questions.
Right.
He just has a sense of unease and something's not right in this world.
Right.
And by the time he talks to John during the interview, he's already doubting reality.
Right.
He just doesn't understand why.
And how far it's gone.
And how far it's
right,
gone. Yeah.
right.
So
How extreme the
John,
situation is.
Yeah, during the investigation is like, let's ask the important questions.
Right.
Let's not be Walensky asking vague, stupid, crazy man questions.
Right.
I'm going to ask you a pointed question, a logical question to a logical man. Illogical.
Right.
And you're like, oh, and that's when he goes, oh, that's the immediate switch.
That's the switch.
So he was growing and changing throughout it, which was really nice to see.
Right.
And it was that moment where he went from doubting to, yeah, something's wrong. I'm going to put on that tinfoil hat.
Right. Right. I will. He's folding the hat in the room to put it on. So we got, I would argue, 3 films here? We have crime noir.
Yeah,
We have detective thriller.
Yep.
I wouldn't necessarily lean too much into murder mystery
No.
because we kind of figure out what's happening with who is who and what's
Yeah.
what.
I think
Sign-
it takes a while before they answer the question of who done it.
Okay, so the who done it, and then we have sci-fi,
Yeah.
alien abduction film, and then it ends in a superhero brawl.
Yeah. What the fuck was up
Oh
with
my
that?
god! I thought
Ladies
we
and
found
gentlemen,
the lost DBZ film.
we have-
Fucking having
it ends in a
Kamehameha
superhero
battle.
film.
Like, what was going on with that?
So, ladies and gentlemen, here's what we're going to say right off the bat. I don't exactly know if we're going to do the entire plot like we normally would on an episode, but what we will say is, please, if you haven't seen Dark City yet, track it down, rent it, buy it, burn it, whatever. Make a smokestack, try to get it into your life somehow. Watch it. It's definitely worth a watch. It's definitely worth a view. The director's cut is a little bit better than the theatrical. It is one of those ones you're going to chew on. The movie ends in a superhero fight.
It totally does.
And a
It
superhero
really
fight
does.
where we had Spider-Man before the Matrix kind of fights. Those big, like,
Oh, yeah,
punch,
yeah,
punch,
yeah,
punch,
yeah.
punch,
Well,
punch.
this
Yeah.
influence in a way. The
A bit of
Matrix.
it, but
and I do
they've
really
already been
get
working
that,
on it.
That feel from it.
This movie itself wasn't action-packed
No.
because they're fighting with their brains.
Yeah.
Matrix is a little bit more, I don't want to use kung fu, but a little bit more martial art handed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can see why people like The Matrix more. Nobody's seen this movie.
No.
This was a movie that was weird and didn't do well and became a cult hit. It is in that sweet spot around that time where I keep bringing you these weird little pocket plane of Dark City, Matrix 1, Brother of the Wolf.
Yeah.
And it's this little, like, rock in the pond that starts to ripple and touch other stuff. What I will say about Dark City right off the bat is it doesn't have a sequel, doesn't have a prequel. There is one fan film. It's a very short film called Dark Cities, where they are trying to do it again in different pockets. But what I'll argue is, because there is no sequels, I won't say it's better than The Matrix, but as soon as you get into The Matrix and you go Matrix 2, 3, and 4, I feel like those films hurt the original a bit too.
Yeah. I can see where you're going there.
Yeah, I think if I took just Matrix 1
Right.
without anything else.
The Matrix Online. The Matrix, Enter the Matrix.
Animatrix.
The Animatrix.
Yeah, without any of that.
Um,
I would vote that is better than this movie.
the Matrix subreddit.
But if you take everything Matrix and add it up together, yeah, it does detract from it. Except for the Animatrix. The Animatrix definitely improves
Phenomenal.
upon it.
Phenomenal. Love, Sex, and Robots. All of those weird, give me artsy fartsy creators doing weird, fun stuff.
We like our artsies
We
and our
like
fartsies
we
here.
fart and we fart in the art. We love it. Superhero fight.
It must be I find these action sequences weird because all it does remind me of, like Amanda says, is Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan.
Yeah.
And so all it does is go, I've seen that in anime. I think those are and maybe this is because I play D&D/Pathfinder,
Sure.
and I hate how most, I guess we'll call them mage battles,
Mage battles, psychic fights.
yeah, are handled, because I feel like they always just end up in, and we saw it in actually in the
struggle.
I mean, spoiler alert here, we saw it in the new Doctor Strange,
Right.
and I hate that. I think it's so uncreative And that's why I okay, but this was the 90s. It's the best, you know.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of what they could do with the budget that they had, right?
Yeah, I'm more upset today than I am about movies back then. But I was a bit like, this is kind of boring. It's just two dudes, like, you know, squinting at each other.
You get off
and
this
there's ripples.
time. Movies back then. You get off this time.
I also feel like it lasted like a couple minutes too long. Like it was a particularly long beam battle that I feel was just unnecessary. Like they could have shaved off the last like minute of it, I would say.
So I would say, what, them throwing buildings at each other? Or you walk into that fine, sweet line of where it gets real hokey and they're Green Lantern fighting?
Yeah.
Like what works and what doesn't work. And
So-
then it's like what they did and it's like, ooh, fuck.
Yeah, you're right. Based on the lore,
Because it becomes silly at that point.
what they should have been doing is warping reality around each other.
Right.
And it's about who has stronger will, who has more creativity. So yeah, that green lantern. And you're right, they should have been kind of throwing, I guess, warping buildings at each other.
Yeah, like I'm gonna move this building and it's just gonna open up and try to eat you. Like,
I don't know if they had the budget
No,
No, you're totally
or the
right.
effects, but the way that he did beat him was he brought up the water tower because he knew that they were weak against water.
I'd forgotten.
And
about
he
that by that
blasted him through.
I totally didn't even realize
He brought
why.
up the water bubble tower and blasted him through the
Yeah.
water, and that's what ultimately. And he got skewered in the water tower.
scene. I totally
So-
forgot
Forgot
that
about that.
water was their weakness.
Yeah.
Water's
Yeah,
their weakness.
water,
Because
sun, everything
Here's
that
the deal.
humans
They never
need.
said that, like, especially with water, they never said it's a weakness. They said they have an aversion
Right, they
towards
don't
it.
like it.
But
They
they,
don't
do,
like
they
it.
do walk in. We have the Richard, the Richard
Yeah, they
O'Brien,
go into the
Mr. Hank-
bathhouse,
the
but
bathhouse.
they
And they're
can't
like, we
handle
don't fuck with
it.
this. Too
Well,
much
no, he
moisture.
said-
And you laughed at that
I
one.
did. I'm
Yeah,
like,
too
oh
moist.
my god.
He just said he didn't like it. Like,
Right.
it's uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
this isn't like kryptonite. To me, it always just sounded like me with electrical shocks.
The man
Or
exploded.
sun. Or sun.
Or
It's-
yeah, it's like me with sun.
The
I
man-
don't like it.
The man exploded,
But
though.
I think by him getting thrown, just by him overpowering him using the force bubble that they created to force him into that, it weakened his defenses enough to get skewered
I
on
think
the
what they
pole.
needed to have shown, because this is what one of those things where you get to see it 2020 is
It's 2020.
yeah. I think somewhere earlier on in the movie they should have shown one of the strangers falling into water. Not necessarily like John should have seen it, but not necessarily be the one to cause it.
Yeah.
And so he should have, like, this way he can just register that.
Yeah.
A pipe burst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Like a
in
pipe
any
burst,
good
something.
film
any-
noir, there's always the lady running with like the newspaper on her head.
But it
there
wouldn't
was
have rained.
no,
It wouldn't have
It
rained.
wouldn't
there's
have
no
rained.
rain,
There's no rain
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
movie,
Right.
Yeah,
and
they can't
that's
do
also
that.
like a ping. That's weird.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like they should have shown that water is not just, because the words they said was ew water, not you know,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is like the worst, like this will kill me.
Right.
They didn't inspire that. So when he got hit by the water, it didn't like it didn't spawn a thought of, well, that's clearly his weakness. That's what killed
Yeah,
him.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't put that together until you just said it. So
Yeah.
I just thought he slammed him against something, and
There-
so happened to be water.
We did have a bit of them fighting mind to mind where stalagmites were bursting out of the ground. They had
Yeah.
the bridges collapsing. Their layer / spaceship was just imploding on itself as they were battling around.
Yes.
So you did get bits of that, but you got bits of that were not necessarily poorly CGI'd, but within the strains of the budget at that point in the film.
Mhm.
Yes.
Right. So
My question about water is, what happened to the purple water? Because he was in purple water
I was
in
thinking
the
exact
bath,
same thing.
and then when they went to get the fish, it was clear.
so
What happened to the purple water?
They made the water purple when the main character there, John, was in the bathtub because he
Yeah.
was naked, and they had to find a way to like blur him out. So it was tinted purple. But then when they put the goldfish in, suddenly it was just normal clear bath
Because I'm like,
water.
wouldn't the goldfish die?
Right,
Because
that's
it's
exactly
in
what I was thinking.
purple
It was like,
water.
okay,
And-
it would never be able to breathe in
Okay,
there.
I noticed all that, but I didn't think of the reason for it to be purple. That it's because he was naked.
Censored nudity.
I did not.
so
think
my
of that
argument
as the
was when
I mean,
they
in
knocked
anime, they make it green.
the syringe, it would have been some of the syringe, but they knocked the syringe across the room.
yeah.
So it's just because they didn't want to show his cock.
Yeah.
yeah.
They can
That's
show his
disappointing.
butt, but they can't show his.
Yeah. They can't show his cock.
Hey, they showed Master Chief's butt. They can show this guy's butt.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know, guys. Thoughts overall? Do you guys want to close out, or do we have more to say? I mean, this is one of those ones where I think we might even like. I want to do Brotherhood of the Wolf again, because not now, but in like a year or so, I feel like we could come back and find something either we still don't like, or it might have grown on you. And I feel like this one deserved
Dark City.
No, Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Oh.
But I feel like Dark City is definitely one of those films. Like I said, maybe not once a year, but it is up there as a. Oh fuck! This was good. This is a mood. This is a vibe. This is a when you're writing this or trying to set up a tabletop role playing game. This is very. You're trapped here. You're trying to figure this out. Like solve the mystery
This
as you move stuff around.
Inspired so many storylines for me to run as a DM.
That's wonderful.
Like
There's-
I thought it like just while watching it, I'm like, damn, this would make for a great low level adventure,
Right.
Where you just show up in a town and there's people doing weird shit and you cannot get out anymore. And you're trying to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Because the strangers are playing with toys.
Yeah, or I would just have you wake up in a town.
Here's my battle map. You're my minis. Make them kiss. Like you're straight out. Nintendo gave you something.
I forgot what I was going to say before. You mentioned the inspector having like who was he before. Now this is also is John Murdoch's memory at the end that he gets injected with his true memories, and
No.
if so. Okay, because it's like, okay, the inspector was the postman. The hotel manager was the ice cream man. And then the doctor was all the other characters kind of built in. So it's like, was that people from his past?
No, they were all... So they definitely said that the beach... What was it called again?
Shell Beach.
Shell Beach.
Shell Beach.
Never existed. It doesn't exist. All of those are fake memories. And all the memories that we saw at the end that he was injected with are all of his childhood on Shell Beach. So we know it's fake. And I do love that. Oh my God. Okay, sorry, you brought up something that I forgot to bring up.
We're not done yet. Hang on.
We're not
It's
done
going to be
yet.
a long one, folks.
I hate it when a hero's like, I'm the baddies have this cool superpower, and I'm the new guy on the block who just started to learn how to use the power. I just got the power.
The Mary Sue.
The Mary Sue, and I'm going to show up, exactly, the Mary Sue. I'm just going to show up and be the best at using that power by the end of the movie. This one, it didn't bother me because it's like, yeah, we just injected a lifetime's worth of training
In his head.
into your head.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the Matrix, I know Kung Fu
I know
moment.
Kung Fu, right.
And I'm like, that was fucking brilliant.
And that was only made possible because Murdoch didn't trust him and put the syringe in his pocket.
Yeah.
yeah,
And he was able to do the old switcheroo.
Right.
I loved it. But yeah, it was definitely fake, all fake memories.
Okay.
Because I personally think there is no real memories anymore.
No, we'll look at the
Yeah.
Blade Runner scenario, right?
Yeah.
Where they go, yo, you remember spiders? You remember kissing the boy? You remember scraping your knee?
Yes.
And then Rachel freaks the fuck out because those are her Deckard's memories
yes.
and they're fake.
See, Murdoch reminded me of how Dune is, where it's like this one guy kind of rises up as like not the Messiah.
The white savior. Yes, you'll
No.
find
Yes,
that. You'll
yeah.
find that a lot.
He
in
this now watching it this time reminded me a
For
lot
real?
of Dune. Being
Yeah.
like, oh, he is the one to bring order back, and he has to he is solely in control now of this disc of broken people
right.
that now
Yeah.
are stuck with the memories they have. There's no rewriting memories, so these are the people that they are forever.
Yeah.
So how does he create this salvage this broken society and get his old not wife to love him again? Which is also a little,
A little weird.
Yeah.
a little weird,
Yeah.
but
it's a common theme because it happened in blah 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 of Mars.
John
John
Carter.
Carter
John
of
Carter.
Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the white savior is a very cliche story, and I do look at this and go, I don't know whether or not I trust the aliens more or this guy more to safely guide this. I guess we'll call it now a colony of humans to something.
To
Yeah.
anything in space. I
and
mean,
there's no kids. Well, except for the one lady, she had a
Yeah,
daughter,
they can
but
have
it didn't really
kids.
show other children
But like, how do they handle food?
I was going to say that, but it's a
Yeah.
science
because
fiction
all the
movie.
food was constructed.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like the interesting thing is you could replace any actor in this to kind of mitigate the white savior aspect of it.
You could.
I think any actor in this would be good.
Like I said, I think that Rufus Sewell reminds me a lot of Oscar Isaac
Yeah.
in
Oh, yeah,
looks
for
and
sure.
mannerisms, and like they could remake this and easily cast Oscar Isaac as a lead.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, for
No
sure, for
problem.
sure. Oscar Isaac would probably be great. Look at what he did with Moon Knight,
Yeah.
right? Stephen, Mark, and Jack.
Yeah.
He did great. So yeah, this movie was absolutely fantastic. I think you're starting, after a few of these movies, you're starting to pinpoint my style and the things that really get me, tickle my fancy.
So we're going for something silly, something serious.
Yeah.
Something silly, something serious.
Yeah, you can't be all one mood.
No. But I mean, like, next episode will be something a little bit more silly,
Yeah.
just to keep it light.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, these are the kinds of movies that I'm amazed I haven't seen this, because it is right up my alley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I never even heard of this film until you mentioned it. And
That's the problem with this
it's
film.
so weird that
It
like
is a problem.
it seems too good to be so unheard of.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Like a lot of the movies that we've watched, it's like, yeah, okay, I get why nobody's ever heard of this because it's kind of like weird and sad and like, I don't know, just it's a low budget like romp or whatever the case is.
Or like a Star Wars comes out and blows it out of the fucking
Right.
water.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh
But
yeah, clearly
this-
everyone went to the show to see this. Go ahead.
This seems too good to be so
Well, look at the
underground.
cast. The cast is like star-studded, like you said, except for the role,
So the thing
the
is,
lead role, which is brilliant.
and I know I keep going back to it. The thing is, I know one more thing. This movie, Chucky. The thing is, the movie was supposed to come out the same weekend Titanic came out.
Oh, you will never compete with that
Jesus.
shit.
That
And
explains everything.
Titanic did not slow down
No.
for weeks.
It's the highest grossing
For
film of all
weeks.
Yeah.
time.
and they kept pushing
Weeks.
it
It's
back.
like months and years.
Yeah,
Like I
so
remember
they-
seeing Titanic in theaters like months after it came out.
So they finally released it the year Titanic came out,
Jeez.
and nobody fucking went to go see
Years.
it.
It makes
Yeah.
total sense why
Okay.
it never got viewed.
I
Yeah.
totally get it.
I can also see
Right.
the 90s were a different time, and I don't know whether it's just the production companies didn't let certain things happen, but we are more accepting of artsy fartsy,
Yeah.
weird, strange movies nowadays. I don't know if that's 100% sure, whether it's just the producers assumed we didn't back then.
It's people like us who grew up watching these movies as they came out, wanting to make these movies now
True.
as adults.
Yeah.
True.
The bigger the budget, the less artsy fartsy the movie's going to be. What
Sure.
I've found is, even on the documentary for this, is they openly straight out say, if you have a lot of ideas, that's great. Pick one and then make a movie with that
Yep.
one idea. The
Yeah.
bigger your budget is, the less ideas and the less weird you're going to be able to get out there.
Yep.
And you're going to have to just take a hatchet and cut that story up and make it simpler and simpler, because the investors and the way studios work is they want low risk and big payout.
Yes.
So the
Yeah.
reason why this only had 27 million, which isn't that much
For a movie
nowadays,
budget? No.
is because they went, okay, we'll take less money and we'll take less money. And New Line Cinema at the time was just like, hey, we need something to put out.
Which
And it
is
seems
funny.
fun, and this not fun. This seems weird and kind of up our artsy fartsy alley, because New Line hadn't done Lord of the Rings yet. They
3
were doing
years later, they did Lord of the Rings.
They were
Or
doing
they were
Austin
starting to
Powers
talk
movies.
They
about
also
it.
did TMNT.
they did TMNT, and they've
And
seen potential.
Home,
Yeah.
Home Alone.
And
Yeah.
what you got to respect, whether it did poorly or not, they didn't go, okay, let's make a comic book, let's make a video
No.
game, or let's try to make toys and franchise this. They just went, you made a movie, it's artsy fartsy, not a lot of people are gonna like it or gonna get it, but put it out in the world and see what happens.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
And DVD sales is the only reason why it became a cult hit, because if it was just released on VHS, I think it would have stayed there,
Yeah.
because it didn't make any money back. And they finally, with the director's cut, they'll do showings at some of the very smaller cinemas.
Yep.
Robert Eggert himself does a commentary on this film because he
Oh.
loved it so much. He's like, fucking Titanic's great. This is a movie you need to see.
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman does a beautiful write-up about how much he enjoyed this movie. This movie was touched by a lot of artsy-fartsy people, or people who appreciate art
Yep.
and are like, hey,
For
it's
sure.
weird, and I can respect that it's weird, and we need more weird in the world. And that's why I think films like this are important.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I completely agree with you. Like, no, I think you're wrong. And
Sorry, Dad.
yeah.
Just the influence they had, like you said, like they inspired loosely The Matrix. Like, okay, you're in an alternate reality and you don't know, you're stuck in this weird time loop, until you get woken up and you're like, you look around and it's like, what everyone's sleeping. Like, you can really see the parallels between the first Matrix when he wakes up in its little pods.
I don't necessarily know if this has inspired the Matrix, because the Wachowski's siblings, the Wachowski sisters at that point had written it already.
Well, you can see the like a side by side. Then if they came out a year apart, you can see, you know, the sleeping and waking up and seeing what the world actually is and which reality do you actually want to be in.
Right.
And I think this did a good job of, because like you look at the Matrix, and the Matrix was a mystery up until right at the end of the first act.
Right.
Right. When they revealed they wake them up. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it was an action movie from
where
then
you wake up right away and you're
There's
like,
still a lot of philosophy.
No.
There's still a lot of philosophy in the Matrix.
Philosophy,
and
but it's
stuff.
not a mystery.
Right.
It's all philosophy.
Right.
In this one, I felt like they constant trickle fed new information. And you kind of felt like the investigator. You're like, I have a jigsaw puzzle, and you've got all these different pieces, and you're sitting there watching this movie, and you got all these different pieces, and no matter how you organize it, you can't put it together in a reasonable order. And you're just sitting there waiting, and then they drop another little jigsaw piece.
They breadcrumb you.
And they breadcrumb you all the way till the very end, before the the Superman battle.
Like, he knew he would have didn't show it, but he would have read what was in his pocket, seeing that he could be the serial killer, going with May to her apartment to see if he'd actually kill her, and then it didn't show until after him throwing all the newspapers away that he already knew,
which was planted on him.
Yeah, which already knew. He already kind of figured out who he was, but it didn't show that little bit of him knowing beforehand. So it's like he knows more than what he's putting off.
Yeah, it was great. I really liked the
good writing.
It was great writing. It was a good trickle feed that kept you going. Give me the next piece. Give me the next jigsaw piece.
I want to figure this out.
And whose side is the doctor on?
Yeah.
Who is he working for?
That was
Who is he working for right to the end, right?
Yeah.
Because he was like, no, he got away. He attacked me. He could have lied.
Yeah.
But he's also trying to survive to get out of this eventually. And this is his ticket out.
Yeah, he was great.
Kiefer Sutherland, one of his best roles.
Great.
So, is there any final closing thoughts?
Great movie. This is, out of a lot of the movies we've watched so far, I think this is a surefire. If you're here listening to movies and you want to hear cult movies, watch this goddamn movie.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Sit alone, watch it from start to finish.
In a dark room.
Yeah,
in a dark room. And just enjoy the journey. Don't go look at Wikipedia. I mean, wait, hold on a second. If you've already heard this, you've already heard everything about this movie. Well, that's just screwed up. Oh well, it's too late now.
We can clip out and do a little PSA message in the beginning.
Yeah,
that's what we'll have to do.
It was much dark, very city.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Raised by Spoilers. I'm one of your hosts. We got one?
No. Okay.
Okay. You sure?
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Raised by Spoilers. I'm one of your hosts, Geek Movie House. I've got a lovely guest of people with me. Nintendo Geek, Plubby, and Amanda.
Yo.
Adam, take us home. Where can they find us? What should we promote? Go for it.
Join us on the Ronin Geek. We've got a classic episode coming out about Moon Knight coming up soon. Speaking of things we've talked about it. We've had a few Elden Ring. We've got our next digital love is going to be Slime Rancher.
Ah, yes. The cute slimes.
The cute slimes. Come join us on Discord. Talk about Dark Knight with us. Talk about Chaos Gate, which is something I think we talked about in one of our classics. Here are our classic episodes. Come talk to us. We've got Cephalopod app. If you're looking for a very minimal app that doesn't take all your data, download Cephalopod. It's got your podcasts without your data stealing. That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night, and we'll see you next time.
Sleep well. Sleep.
Woo!
How's the turtle sound when he has sex? You don't have the earmuffs on. Trust me, it's a lot worse when I do it. And you all are like, no, I can do it. It's better. And I'm like, stop, please, God. Laugh until y'all put headphones on, and then we'll fucking deal the real show.
Oh, this is actually really.
Count me in.